After pursuing Jack for 25 years, he finally proposed to me. On the wedding day, his crush came to interrupt the wedding. "Jack, you've won the bet. I got divorced from him. You don't need to get married anymore." I begged Jack not to leave, but he still did. The pursuit failed, and the male lead was about to be wiped out. The next moment, Jack died in his crush's arms. Before the wedding, I jokingly asked Jack, "If Nora comes to interrupt our wedding, would you go with her?" Jack smiled faintly and touched my hair. "Don't worry, she won't come." His answer didn't seem to convince me but rather himself. Persisting, I asked, "What if she actually comes?" A hint of anticipation flashed across his face, and he used his usual gentle tone to coax me. "Silly girl, stop overthinking." He knew that as long as he softened a bit, I would surrender obediently. However, this time, I didn't stay silent as he had hoped. "Jack, please, no matter what happens at the wedding, can we finish it together?" Jack's brow furrowed. "Lisa, will you ever stop? Nora is already married. She won't come to interrupt. Understand?" I didn't want to be so humble, but I wanted to live. Because I'm a strategist. The first task I received was to pursue Jack and marry him. In fact, this task wasn't difficult. It didn't require Jack to fall in love with me, just to marry me before he turned 30. To complete the task, I came when Jack was 5 years old. At that time, Jack was not the influential CEO he is now, just a servant's son living in Nora's basement. To spend time with Jack, I assumed the identity of the servant's daughter chosen by the system. And so, I grew up with Jack, experiencing our youthful years together. We studied together every morning at 5, challenged each other, and encouraged one another. We wore $5 sneakers and ate $1 hot dogs together. We were poor, but we never felt inferior, because we were each other's backbone. At 20, we both got admitted to the best universities in the country with top scores. On the day we received our acceptance letters, the setting sun hung over the horizon. The warm hues painted the playground as Jack, blushing, held my hand. "Lisa, I'm so lucky to have you in this world." I was also very fortunate then. The person I pursued was this fearless young man. Everything changed when Nora returned from abroad. Nora's father donated a building to the school, making her our classmate effortlessly. She was dazzling, bold, and free, a goddess in the eyes of many male classmates. However, the student council president, Jack, was not among the many admirers. Therefore, on the first day of school, Nora started pursuing Jack. If Jack was an ice cube, then Nora was a flame. Nora was like a bottle of pent-up energy, determined to melt Jack's icy exterior. At that time, Jack greatly disliked Nora, considering her an oblivious rich girl. He repeatedly told Nora that he loved me, that he and I were inseparable. But little Princess Nora paid no attention to these warnings. She worked diligently to carve out a place in Jack's heart. Every day after that, Nora brainwashed Jack that he and I were just friends. "You and Lisa are just used to each other's presence since childhood. Your relationship is just friendship from when you were young. Real love is about desire and passion. When you two hold hands, you probably feel nothing special." I tried to stop her, but after over a decade of being together, Jack and I had such an understanding that it was hard to disturb the peace. The more I tried to prove her wrong, the more I ended up confirming her words. But neither Jack nor I had the heart to confront the truth. Finally, Nora couldn't stand it anymore. At the school's anniversary celebration, she kissed a boy who had confessed to her. That night, I saw Jack pinning Nora against the wall, passionately kissing her. Nora had finally achieved her goal. Jack and I went back to being friends. Later, Nora brought Jack to her home. It was the first time I saw Nora's refined father lose his temper. It was also the first time I saw a hint of inferiority in Jack's eyes. Despite Nora's father's attempts to intervene, Jack and Nora's love only grew deeper. Nora's father even cut off Nora's credit card. In just 1 month, Jack had spent all his previous earnings from working multiple jobs. He not only borrowed money from me several times, but also, for the first time, asked his mother for nearly $20,000. We had been supporting ourselves with scholarships since high school. Aunt even called me, asking if Jack was facing difficulties. I could only reassure her, saying Jack was involved in a student entrepreneurship project needing funds. But I knew all those grand gestures were just because Nora had her eye on an expensive designer bag. When they broke up, Nora and Jack had a bitter argument. Nora couldn't understand why Jack was upset when she bought an $800 pair of heels since she'd spent thousands of dollars on footwear before. Jack gritted his teeth and remained silent, but I knew his decision to break up wasn't because he didn't love her. but because he felt unworthy of her at that moment. 5 years later, it seemed like Nora's family was heading for disaster, while Jack's tech company was thriving. There were rumors of an arranged marriage from Nora's family. Jack was initially interested but soon faced a harsh reality check. Even a sinking ship like Nora's family was not something he could board now. In the end, Nora married the second young master of the old and prestigious Tom family. Jack started drinking heavily every night, living like a shell of himself. I would handle the mess at his company during the day, and then accompany him home from bars every night when he was drunk. Each time he got drunk, with his cheeks flushed, I was reminded of that young man under the setting sun, feeling bittersweet in my heart. He must have really thought I was great back then. Jack's 30th birthday was still 2 months away. I had given up on the mission. News had it that Nora and Tom were divorcing soon. I bid farewell to my mom, planning to travel around the world. While I was preparing for that, Jack knelt down and proposed to me. After years of waiting, my wish came true. Saying I wasn't happy would be a lie, but now I can't tell if it's because I can be happy living or being with him. Before the wedding, I repeatedly confirmed with him if he really wanted to marry me. His answers were resolute, but when I asked Nora, he couldn't even lie. But I didn't seem to care that much anymore. As long as the wedding went smoothly, my mission would be completed. Throughout the wedding, I was on edge, fearing something would go wrong, and Jack seemed preoccupied, as if he was expecting something. Finally, when it was time to exchange rings, Nora showed up. It felt like the butcher's raised blade had finally come down. I actually felt a hint of relief in my heart. "Jack, you won the bet. I'm divorcing him, so don't get married," I shouted. For my life, I made one last struggle, grabbing Jack's sleeve. "Jack, please don't go. Did you forget what you promised me before?" I was so close to being able to survive. Although Jack looked apologetic, he brushed my hand off and walked towards his beloved Nora. "Sorry, Lisa. The wedding today was actually because Nora said she wasn't good enough for my second marriage. So I impulsively married you. I thought if I got married again, Nora wouldn't feel inferior anymore. After thinking it through, only you, my best friend, could help me with this." I looked coldly at the man who had been with me for 25 years and decided not to say a word. "System, should I give up on this mission?" "Confirm. Mission failed. The male lead is about to be obliterated." Upon hearing the system prompt, my mind went blank. Before I could react, the next moment, Jack's pupils dilated, and he fell on Nora. Nora, who was hugging Jack, seemed unaware that Jack was already dead. She embraced Jack, like a victorious peacock finding its mate, and said, "Jack, I knew as long as I turned back, you'd be here waiting for me." As she turned to kiss Jack, her pitch-black eyes glanced through Jack's head straight at me, full of disdain and provocation. I knew she must be feeling quite smug right now. To her, Jack was just a backup, and I was Jack's backup. Over the years, she always had a natural sense of superiority when facing me. "But Nora, what you're kissing now is a corpse." Meanwhile, the only table of guests under the stage excitedly whistled and applauded. Some even started setting off the prepared fireworks. Perhaps Jack had anticipated Nora coming to interrupt the wedding. Considering Nora's married status, he only invited a few close friends. These people were well aware of the messy situation between him and Nora. Fearful of any accidents at the wedding, afraid my mom would see me dead at the ceremony, I didn't invite her. The only one I invited was my lawyer. He was filming the dramatic love event on his phone. Originally, I planned that if the strategy failed and I died at the wedding, the mainstream media would immediately receive the explosive revelations from my lawyer. I even had the headlines prepared for them. "Married mistress interrupts a wedding. Groom and mistress team up to suffocate the bride." But unexpectedly, Jack died. After a while of kissing, Nora finally noticed the lifeless look on Jack's face. In panic, she instinctively pushed Jack. With a loud bang, Jack fell to the ground and hit the marble floor with the back of his head. Blood gushed all around. The system's cold voice rang out again. "Now he's really dead." As soon as the words were spoken, I saw Jack's soul slowly drifting out of his body. He looked at his lifeless body in disbelief, as well as at Nora, who was frantically vomiting and looked crazy. After a commotion, an ambulance was called, and people started to resuscitate Jack. Dressed in my wedding gown, I calmly walked over to Jack's body and stood silently by his side. As Jack floated near me, seeing that I hadn't shed a single tear, his face turned blue with anger. "Lisa, I'm almost dead, and you don't even shed a tear," he sneered. 20-something years of affection are so cheap. "When I wake up, our friendship will be over." I sat there expressionless, pretending not to see or hear him. Meanwhile, Nora, after vomiting for a while, regained her composure. Tears welled up in her eyes, large drops streaming down her cheeks, and I couldn't help but pity her. Seeing Nora's eyes turning red from crying, Jack's face softened a lot from its intense blue. He murmured, "Nora must be heartbroken. How could she live without me?" A shrill ringtone interrupted the scene. Trembling, Nora slowly picked up the phone after a while. A dominant male voice faintly transmitted through the phone. "You said you wanted a divorce. I'm waiting for you now." Panic flashed across Nora's pale face as she walked a few steps away. Stunned, Jack reflexively reached out to grab Nora's hand. Of course, he grabbed nothing but air. Nora wiped away her tears, softly saying, "Tom, I'm sorry. I don't want a divorce. I just said that to make you jealous." Upon hearing this, Jack, in disbelief, looked at his goddess-like Nora. How could these words come from Nora's mouth? No, Nora must have her reasons. Jack desperately tried to grab Nora, who was trying to leave, but he passed through her body repeatedly. "Nora, please don't go. Look back at me. I'm dying," he said. Unable to stop Nora, he tried to follow her, but an invisible barrier kept him by my side. Jack's soul was trapped near me. In the end, Jack could only helplessly watch as Nora walked away from the hotel. Jack had chosen a secluded garden hotel, so the ambulance took 20 minutes to arrive. After Jack's body was lifted onto the ambulance, his friends immediately claimed they had urgent matters to attend to and didn't go to the hospital with him. "Lisa, call me if there's anything at the hospital. We're like family," said Jack's self-proclaimed best friend, closing the ambulance door awkwardly when I didn't respond. On the way to the hospital, Jack's soul sat quietly in its place, perhaps not expecting his so-called loyal brothers to be so heartless. I closed my eyes and summoned the system in my mind. System, why was Jack erased? The system, named blaming others more, reflecting less, responded coldly. After strategizing for 25 years and still failing to beat Jack, it must be his fault. Erasing him solves the problem. Through gritted teeth, I replied, "Why didn't you tell me earlier?" The system sneered, "Why didn't you ask earlier? Your name wasn't chosen in vain." At the hospital, after a series of rescue efforts, the doctor declared Jack dead. Jack's soul kept trying to return to his body, crying and screaming, going mad for a while before slowly accepting his death. I took Jack's body to the funeral home, sent notices to a few close friends, and informed them about Jack's funeral tomorrow. Preparing for tomorrow's funeral, I called my mother. "Mom, I want to visit Aunt today. Will you come with me?" Surprised, my mom replied, "It's only the 10th today. Don't you usually visit Aunt on the 15th of every month?" Jack, stunned, said, "Lisa, I didn't know you visited my mom every month." After a moment of silence, I told my mother, "Mom, I have something to tell you. Get ready. Jack has passed away." My mom and aunt were best friends when they worked as maids at Nora's house. Aunt had always been very fond of me, and my mom was also very caring towards Jack. When we were kids, classmates teased us for not having fathers. I comforted Jack, although we both don't have fathers, we have two mothers. Later, Jack and I grew closer, and our two mothers were delighted. In their hearts, the four of us were already a family. On the way to the nursing home, my mom kept wiping tears. Jack's soul sat in the back seat, eyes slightly red, lost in thought. In the nursing home ward, Aunt didn't have much reaction when she saw me, as she had Alzheimer's for many years and no longer recognized me. To avoid causing trouble for Jack, she had chosen to live in the nursing home. Seeing my mom, Aunt was slightly excited. She tried to speak, but couldn't because tubes were everywhere, even in her throat. Witnessing this, Jack almost broke down. He shouted, "Mom, Mom." He rushed to the bedside, wanting to touch Aunt, but he couldn't. "Why is my mom like this? Lisa, why didn't you tell me?" He roared at me loudly. Just then, the head nurse came in and called me to the doctor's office. Jack's soul followed me inside. "Lisa, can you help me notify Jack to come and see his mother?" Our nurse had called Jack several times, but he was either in a meeting or intoxicated. Jack's mother was in the 3rd stage of Alzheimer's disease. Her health had deteriorated since a lung infection, and time was running out. "Please, let Jack spend more time with his mother," the doctor pleaded. Helplessly, I sighed. "I've told him several times." Jack's eyes widened in disbelief. "Lisa, you're lying. When did you tell me?" Suddenly, it hit him like lightning. "No, you did tell me, Lisa. You reminded me several times. Why didn't I come? Why didn't I come?" Mockingly in my heart, "Because you work during the day and get drunk at night. Besides Nora, no one else matters to you." Before leaving, I informed the doctor that Jack had tragically passed away. If Aunt had any issues in the future, she could call me directly. Before leaving, I paid $1,000,000 for Aunt's care. Jack, looking at me with a mix of complex emotions, said, "Lisa, thank you." The next day, at the funeral, There weren't many close friends present apart from business partners. After a simple farewell, everyone departed. I was about to ask the staff to take Jack for cremation, when two unexpected visitors appeared before me. Nora and her husband, Tom, were at Jack's funeral, arm in arm. Nora was dressed in a fitted black dress, a black hat perched on her head, with delicate makeup on her face. Tom, also in a high-end suit, looked like they could head straight to a banquet after leaving the funeral home. Jack, who had been almost invisible, was delighted to see Nora. But when he saw the person Nora was arm in arm with, his eyes almost shot fire. Nora, why did you bring him here? Why are you holding his hand? Jack's eyes widened with hate and despair. Of course, Nora couldn't hear Jack's cries. She smiled at Tom. Tom, the service is over. Let's go. Tom withdrew his arm coldly, saying, no rush. Glancing at me with sharp eyes, Tom said, Lisa, I'm here to inform you that our group will begin the acquisition of Oriental Tech tomorrow. Oriental Tech was a tech company Jack and I started together, focusing on solar power. Jack held 51% of the shares, and I had 49%. Initially, I gave Jack the majority share, knowing as the male lead, he might excel in entrepreneurship, thinking it would be beneficial. In a calm tone, I replied, Tom, Oriental Tech is Jack's and my hard work. I'm not selling. Tom's gaze grew intense. Lisa, I'm informing you, not asking you. He extended his hand in front of Nora. Hesitating for a moment, Nora took out a document from her bag and placed it in Tom's hand. From the moment Jack saw the document, his face was filled with insane hatred and despair. Unable to contain himself, he shouted, Nora, why? Why? I treated you so well. Why betray me? You said you felt insecure. That's why I gave it to you. It was my dowry to you. Only when I saw the contents of the document, did I understand why Jack turned so ferocious and terrifying. It was a contract granting Lisa ownership shares from Jack. The contract clearly stated that Jack was gifting 51% of his shares in Oriental Tech to Lisa. It was notarized and signed by a lawyer. Looking at the date, it was done before Jack and I got married. So, what he gifted was his personal property from when he was single, and even now, I have no right to claim it back. Now, Lisa holds 51% of Oriental Tech shares. With her approval, Tom can acquire Oriental Tech. The anger that had been simmering in me slowly rose to the surface. Jack, that fool, truly deserved what he got. Oriental Tech, which I worked hard to build from the ground up, has been neglected by him since marrying Lisa. If it wasn't for hitching a ride on his male lead luck, I would have taken a larger share of the company long ago. After going through the gifting contract, I couldn't find a single flaw. Lisa, no need to look further. I came to you, so it must have been verified for authenticity. I chuckled. Tom, I always thought you were clueless about the mess between Lisa and Jack. I never imagined, not only you knew about it, but also planned to profit from this mess. Upon hearing my words, Lisa's eyes blazed with anger. Lisa, you're talking nonsense. I've always seen Jack as a brother figure. He gifted me the shares because my dad helped him back when we were starting out. The only person I have ever loved is Tom. Otherwise, I wouldn't have given him these shares. If souls could bleed, Jack would be spitting blood right now. After all these years of effort, he is only seen as a brother figure in the end. Turning around, he handed all his wealth over to Tom. If it weren't for the hard work and dedication I poured into Oriental Tech, I would burst out laughing thrice. Jack, you truly got what you deserved. I turned to Nora. Nora, Jack was quite generous to you. He just passed away, and you're saying those things at his wake. Don't you feel any shame? Jack, anticipating Nora's response nervously, looked at her. There was a hint of anxiety in Nora's eyes as she replied, Lisa, I know you're envious. You've loved Jack deeply all these years, but Jack has quietly protected me. However, I truly only love Tom. Clenching his fists in disgust, Jack lunged towards Lisa. Lisa, you wretched woman. It was you who told me you married him, just to save your family. You've always loved me. It was you who told me Tom is gay, and he hasn't touched you in the 5 years of your marriage. Why? No matter how many punches he threw at Lisa, they all dissipated into thin air. Watching Jack's futile rage, I felt sick to my stomach. I pulled out the video of Lisa attempting to steal me from Tom, taken by my lawyer yesterday, and handed it to Tom. Tom, take a look. After Tom finished watching, there was a smile on his lips, but it didn't reach his eyes. Earlier, Lisa had asked for a divorce, and I had agreed. But yesterday, she had a change of heart, and didn't want a divorce anymore. To show her remorse, she presented this generous dowry, saying she wanted to marry me again. Seeing Lisa so sincere, I decided to let bygones be bygones. I chuckled disdainfully. There have been rumors in the circle that Tom always puts profits first. Now, just to get a piece of Oriental tech, he can even endure wearing the cuckold's hat. Finally, Tom's face showed a hint of anger. Lisa, instead of wasting time arguing with me here, I suggest you settle your disabled employees promptly. Unlike you, I'm not so kind-hearted to support so many disabled people. Once I take over Oriental Tech, the first thing I'll do is kick them all out. With that, Tom walked out with Lisa. Oh, Lisa, I wanted to let bygones be bygones between women, but you went too far. Now you've set your sights on Oriental Tech. Coveting my lover, I could bear. Coveting my money, I cannot. I dialed my lawyer's number after their departure. Hearing the conversation, Jack's look of despair turned into relief. Thank you, Lisa. Even now, you're willing to help me guard the company. I was blind before. I'm sorry, Lisa. Oriental Tech was always my pride and joy. And you want me to help guard it. System, does he really think he can come back to life at this point? That night, I had the system lock Jack's soul out of the room, and I slept soundly. But early the next morning, I was rudely awakened by a series of urgent phone calls. It was the manager of a downstream factory calling me. Lisa, you need to come to the factory quickly. Many employees are on strike, causing trouble. Jack had signed this urgent European order, and if the workers continue like this, delaying delivery will cost us 10 times the liquidated damages. I carefully questioned the manager about the details and learned that several people had been spreading rumors as soon as they started working today. The rumors claimed that, because of Jack's death, I had no interest in running Oriental Tech and was planning to sell it to Tom. However, Tom was only interested in buying the proprietary IC chip technology and team. He didn't want any of the company's other employees or those from the downstream factories. When I sell off the core technology, the entire factory and workforce would be shut down without any regard for the employees' well-being. It's utterly ridiculous. Jack and I invested all our resources in developing the domestic photovoltaic IC chip with the goal of being independent someday. How could I ever sell it off? It's just Tom's arrogance that he thinks he has the upper hand, resorting to such dirty tricks to make me suffer. I decided to take a walk around the factory to stabilize the morale. When I arrived, dozens of employees had already gathered at the factory gate. As soon as I got off the car, the factory manager and several executives greeted me. Dozens of workers immediately crowded around. On the side, Jack's expression changed suddenly and urgently said, Lisa, go back to the car quickly. These workers can be unreasonable. Just as if to confirm Jack's words, the workers started angrily questioning me. Lisa, are you going to close the factory? What about the photovoltaic power generation equipment we installed in our homes? I spent $200,000 on it. It's a loss. Give me back my money. It's no wonder the workers were filled with righteous indignation. If they were to lose their jobs, they wouldn't have reacted so strongly. These workers had signed agreements for photovoltaic power generation with the factory. They spent $200,000 to buy the company's photovoltaic power generation equipment and installed it in their homes. The equipment generates electricity that can be sold to the national grid, with an annual income of about 15%. But this project cannot pay off in the short term. If the factory really closed down, and these equipment had problems in the future, they would have no one to turn to for help. Even though the photovoltaic household project was entirely voluntary at the beginning and didn't cheat employees out of their money, a $200,000 investment was a huge sum for ordinary factory workers. I wanted to explain, but they simply wouldn't listen. They continued to crowd forward, their questioning fingers almost poking my face. Several workers looked particularly agitated, clenching their fists tightly, glaring at me fiercely. Things were starting to get out of hand. The factory manager and executives were struggling to protect me. Jack was also frantic to protect me, shouting at the workers to step back. It's ridiculous. They ignored all my efforts when I was alive, but now they pretend to care after my death. Just as I was considering whether to leave first, another group of people rushed out from the factory. Some limped, some were blind in one eye, and some had polio, but they ran crookedly yet fast. They rushed to the forefront of the workers, causing trouble, shielding me behind them. Who dares to bully Lisa? They were small in stature, but imposing in presence. They immediately subdued the agitated workers. These people were the disabled workers Tom talked about, whom I had hired against all odds. Jack and I started from scratch when we were building our business, overcoming countless hardships. At that time, we agreed that when we had the capability, we would do our best to help others. But after LJ Technology grew to a certain size, I suggested giving more job opportunities to disabled workers, but Jack refused outright. Lisa, running a business is not about charity, he said. I had to threaten Jack to back out of LJ Technology before he reluctantly agreed. Later, a video of a group of disabled workers leaving work went viral online, greatly improving LJ Technology's reputation and image. When Jack died, I didn't shed a single tear, but now, seeing these disabled workers, I felt like crying a bit. Jack, open your eyes wide and take a good look. Your generous donation nearly ruined so many people's livelihoods. The situation finally calmed down. I put away my usual calm demeanor, and my eyes became sharp and direct. There's a rumor that I would sell LJ Technology after Jack's death. Why should I sell it? LJ Technology's CFO is my close friend. The HR director is my classmate for over 10 years. And the CTO was recruited by spending a large sum of money. The government subsidies for LJ Technology were negotiated by me, and 80% of the business was brought in by me. Today, I can proudly say that LJ Technology can still thrive without Jack, but not without me, Lisa. I've led LJ Technology to where it is today, and my pillar has never been Jack. My pillar has always been myself. Those who trust me, Lisa, go back to work immediately. Those who don't believe, go find HR and resign immediately. I will only tolerate such an incident today. If it happens again, just get lost. At that moment, a one-armed worker by my side shouted, Lisa, we believe in you. Yes, we all believe in you. Hurry, let's go back to work. With someone taking the lead, the workers began walking back into the factory. Jack's eyes were intense, his gaze piercing. Lisa, I've never seen you so boldly confident. It's truly captivating. The system then jumped in and said, get lost, stay out of this. As soon as I returned to the company, Nora came with Tom's team of lawyers. I had the security guards throw them out, but our little princess Nora couldn't stand for such treatment. When the guards weren't looking, she swiped her card and entered the CEO's exclusive elevator, charging into the CEO's office. Of course, the one sitting in the CEO's office now was me. Lisa, why won't you let us in? Do you think you can hide forever? Nora, go back to be a rich wife and I'll spare you. Nora scoffed, showing disdain. Lisa, even now, you're still being tough. I am curious, how can you look so disdainful in front of me, when I've kept you under my feet from start to finish? Jack's face was filled with disgust, looking at the ferocious Nora as if he had never known her before. Nora, how much have you lied to me? How can you put on such a twisted soul beneath your seemingly innocent and beautiful appearance? Nora's next words happened to answer his question. Lisa, you're just a servant's daughter. What right do you have to be proud? You should be like a pile of mud, rotting in the ground. The first time I saw you and Jack, I hated you both, despising the fearless look in your eyes. Even though I'm a wealthy young lady, you never showed me the subservient gaze I expected. The deeper your love with Jack, the more I wanted to destroy it. How else could I prove my charm? I pretended not to know when he bought me a Chanel bag that he couldn't afford. I wanted to see how far Jack would go for me. Later, when he asked his maid mother for money, I was truly ecstatic. Jack was infuriated, his eyes fiery, teeth chattering, and his whole body trembling uncontrollably. He glared at Nora, as if wanting to tear her apart, saying, you despicable woman. I must have been blind and foolish to trust you. Nora couldn't stand Jack's terrifying appearance. She continued, I lied to him that Tom is gay and has never touched me. I kept him on a hook deliberately. Just didn't want you to have him. Even if it's garbage I don't want. You don't deserve it. Lisa, you're really something. Being the spare tire by his side for 25 years. He would rather have married me than you. So, what makes you so proud? Jack was on the verge of exploding, but in the end, he floated back to me. His eyes were red, tears streaming down. Lisa, I'm sorry. It's all my fault. I used to love you so much. Why did I get attracted to this woman later? Even when I felt guilty for buying you sneakers. Why did I only remember to buy for Nora when I had money? You loved me so much, and I kept on loving Nora with all my might, using your kindness to me over and over again, shattering your hopes each time. In fact, Nora and I are both trash. I'm not worthy of you. Lisa, what if there's another life? I couldn't bear to hear Jack's self-pity anymore. I sneered at Nora. Nora, why do I deserve it? Because I'm now the CEO of Oriental Technology. Even Tom, whom you cling to, has to call me boss. Even if you get 51% of Oriental Technology's shares, you can only try to please him, while I can take Oriental Technology public. As soon as I finished speaking, Tom burst into my office with a group of lawyers. Going public? Are you underestimating me, Tom? I leaned back in my chair, looking sharply at the intruders. Isn't it too presumptuous to bring so many people into my company? Tom chuckled lightly. This company will soon be mine. Why bother about so many things? I sneered. It seems my lawyer isn't responsible enough. you still haven't received a court summons. Tom's face remained unchanged. Are you still not giving up? I've told you, that gifted contract is absolutely fine. I nodded. I know, the contract is fine, but I'm suing Nora for manslaughter, and causing my husband's death. She violated my husband's right to life and body. I will seek the court to revoke the gifted contract. Nora's face suddenly changed. Lisa, what are you talking about? With a mocking smile, I said, let the court decide if I'm talking nonsense. You all better get out now, or I'll call the police. Tom and Nora were caught off guard by my words and left with their tails between their legs. The next day, the lawyer called me to sign a consent form for an autopsy. To determine Jack's cause of death, his body needed to be autopsied. The autopsy would examine all major organs, including the brain and cerebellum. If Jack still held onto hope of resurrection before, it was now completely hopeless, because this fractured body could never go back. But Jack obediently followed me, and softly said, Lisa, if this can save Oriental technology, I'm willing to. Lisa, I just really want to hug you again. A week later, the autopsy report came out. Firstly, after a full examination of the body, the cause of death was a ruptured aortic blood vessel caused by chronic alcoholism. If treated promptly, the survival rate is extremely low. Secondly, the head injury led to hemorrhagic shock, accelerating the time to death to some extent. Thirdly, both were fatal factors. As I read the autopsy report, Jack was also staring at it. He held his head in agony, squatting on the ground. It's all my fault. I ruined my body for Nora, and she ended up killing me herself. With this report, at least Nora would be sentenced for manslaughter, severely injuring Jack, as the recipient of the gift. And as Jack's legal representative, I could request the court to revoke her gifted contract. A month later, Nora was imprisoned for causing injury through negligence. Simultaneously, a huge scandal broke out online. Tom tried to take over Oriental technology, using the gifted contracts of his wife and lover. For days, Jack was incessantly seeking my forgiveness. The system informed me that he was about to dissipate. I went alone to the playground, where we first held hands. The sun was setting, casting a beautiful yet lonely red glow in the sky. Jack's soul was becoming lighter, as if it would vanish with a gust of wind. He tried to hold my hand again. I sighed lightly. Jack, let go. At that moment, Jack wasn't surprised that I could see him. Lisa, so you can really see me. All that the system said was true. For the past 25 years, you have been by my side just to win me over. If you failed to conquer me, I would die. So for these 25 years, no matter how I treated you, to save my life, you kept forgiving me. Jack choked up. Lisa, if there's another life. Before he could finish his sentence, his soul instantly dissipated in the air. Host, shall we start the next task? What about that mother and Oriental technology? Your original body in this world will be taken over by your duplicate. You can understand that each parallel world has its own you. Then let's start the next world. Epilogue. Jack, I have learned the truth from other souls. Give me back my life. System, it was the failure of other players' missions. They got eliminated by themselves. How come it's my turn to be eliminated? I have managed to contact the main god through my connections. System, get ready to die. According to your system management rules, you randomly eliminate people, so you will be cleared soon. Jack roared. Why me? Why am I the one being eliminated? It's not fair. The system snorted coldly, because in these 25 years, she has done her best. During your school days, learning was a piece of cake for you as the male lead. But in order to stand shoulder to shoulder with you, Lisa woke up at 5 a.m. and slept at midnight every day. Her grades even surpassed yours at one point. When you two started a business, it was Lisa who seized the opportunity in the photovoltaic power generation industry. As the company grew, she hired many disabled people, providing them with job opportunities. When images of her kindness went viral on the internet overnight, that's when your company gained fame. Although her purpose in coming to this world was to win you over, Lisa never once gave up on herself. On the other hand, you only knew how to drink and date. So, why should I give up on her for someone like you, who is just trash?